How's it going, people? Welcome to United View and welcome back to the Tactical View. Hope you enjoyed the breakdown of Manchester United's trip to the Emirates to take on Arsenal, and today we've got a special Tactical View episode profiling the debutant from that game, Rasmus Hojlund. So, for a man with only 9 Serie A goals in his career, why did Manchester United spend so much money on him? What exactly is it that he can bring to Manchester United, and what are the things that he still needs to work on? Because obviously he's still quite young, he's not the finished article, and he will have weaknesses as well. So, in terms of where he fits into the team, that's the first question to ask. Obviously, Rasmus Hojlund is a striker, and the previous incumbent in that, well, I say incumbent when he can be bothered to walk down the stairs successfully without tripping himself over, is Anthony Martial, and obviously, for those reasons mentioned, his terrible availability, the fact that he, at this point, his body is just so broken he can't really withstand any physical contact at all, and the fact that even at his best he was a little bit inconsistent, and now with his legs gone he can't really offer us too much in behind. I think for all of those reasons United desperately needed a new centre forward that addresses many of those concerns, and that is why Rasmus Hojlund was targeted. The centre forward market wasn't the strongest it's ever been this summer. I think Ivan Toney's probably somebody that United would have looked at had he not been banned for his gambling exploits, which he's talked about on whatever podcast he decided to do and talk about it. But anyway, United have ended up with Rasmus Hojlund. So he'll start through the middle. When he came on against Arsenal, I think the bits that people liked of his game were the fact that he pretty much instantly put himself about. He's pretty rapid. He's obviously pretty well built, pretty strong, and he gave Gabriel a pretty tough time in a way that not that many Premier League strikers these days actually tend to do. So that was quite impressive. He ran himself into the ground as much as he could, constantly attacked the channels, got in behind, and because of that, it was one of those little things where, because one player is battling so hard, they're able to basically flip the momentum of the game by themselves. So that was a really encouraging thing to see from Hojlund, in that his individual battle versus Gabriel managed to change the momentum from Arsenal dominating United, sort of penning us in a little bit, into back the other way a little bit, and United getting some chances, getting a little bit of joy. So that's what happened against Arsenal. In terms of Hojlund's strengths then, I think the first thing to mention, the first place to go to, is obviously his physical capabilities, because the guy is huge. He's got an impressive frame, electric pace, absolutely rapid, really genuinely quite impressive, and honestly, he might even be faster than Marcus Rashford. And what that gives us in the number 9 position is the threat that we've got when Marcus Rashford's playing, but also because of his large frame and the fact that he has played quite a bit of senior men's football for his age, and the fact that he's almost always played as a striker, or at least in that sort of way, he's quite good at using his body. So actually he ends up being a decent hold-up player as well, which is something that Marcus Rashford can't really offer us from that 9 position. So when you look at Anthony Martial, when he is fit and he is playing, his hold-up play, his ability to drop in and link up, is one of the things that he does offer that Marcus Rashford can't. Hojlund's got that ability to hold off players and retain the ball rather than sort of it bouncing off him, which is impressive, but he can also threaten him behind. And I think that physical profile is a really good base for a very strong Manchester United striker. So that's the sort of basis for everything else to build off and thrive around him. Now, in terms of his technical play, I think he is still a little bit inconsistent, but he is really, really decent in close control. He's not exactly maybe like a Jadon Sancho, who's going to be on the same wavelength as lots of others for really quick interplay, lots of 1-2s, lots of quick combinations. He's not quite that quick mentally and with his feet, but he's good enough to hold off play and bring others into play, as we saw with the brilliant layoff in the lead up to Garnacho's disallowed goal. So he's pretty good at that as well. Now, when talking about Rasmus Hojlund's biggest strength, this is one that I think is absolutely fantastic, because it's almost a little bit of a dying art of strikers, and in terms of maybe the number 9 role disappearing and not keeping up pace with football, this is one thing that players need to have to play as an attacking forward for the biggest clubs, and that is brilliant box movement. So Obviously, Hojlund's come from Serie A, and one thing I want to draw attention to is something that Cristiano Ronaldo said himself a few years back, and that was that because of the different play styles in different leagues, he said the Premier League and La Liga, you get a little bit more space, you can run in behind, there's lots of opportunity for that sort of thing. But in Serie A, where team defending is often prioritised and teams defend the box a lot better, it's much harder to actually find space in the penalty area to get a shot away, to get on the end of a cross. And so I think strikers that, in terms of attributes that stand out well and transfer well from different leagues, I think if you've got a Serie A striker whose movement looks good in Serie A, when you bring them to the Premier League or other leagues around the world, I think that is something that will really, really stand out and stand the striker or the player in good stead. So I think that's something that Ronaldo's pointed out. Obviously, it applied to Edinson Cavani as well, former Manchester United striker, and I think it applies really, really well to Rasmus Hojlund here. And this first one here is a brilliant example of what I mean. So if it will let me draw, which I think it should. So the first thing you can see is you've got, this is, I believe, from an international game, because it looks like the Denmark kit to me. You see you've got the winger on the ball there in a crossing position. You've got Hojlund here in the centre. Now, at first glance, this doesn't really look like an entirely favourable situation for Denmark in terms of their attack, because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So the back four in place. You've got 3 midfielders tracking back as well, and you've only really got potentially 3 Danish players in scoring positions from here. So actually, on first glance, this does not look like a great opportunity. But football's not all about having overloads everywhere. Sometimes individual bits of quality and technical skill can be the difference. And that is exactly what Hojlund demonstrates here. So, whereas a lot of players, and you see this quite a lot with the likes of Marcus Rashford, sometimes with Antony as well, players that don't have that real scoring instinct, what you'll tend to see them do is make their run. They might start in this sort of position and just sort of run to the back post, but that's just hoping really the defender doesn't get a touch on it. So what Hojlund does here is he's positioned himself really nicely in the blind spot of the defender. So you can see the defender's watching the ball over that side, Hojlund's just out of view for the defender, so that means that the defender's got to either choose to watch Hojlund or watch the ball, can't do both at the same time. So that makes it difficult to defend to start with, and as we roll on the sequence here, to the second image, you can see as the crossing player has lifted his foot to play that cross, that's the sort of the trigger, the visual cue that Hojlund uses, which is an important thing. If you're a striker at home, you want to improve your game, your movement in the box, that's something to look out for. You want to time your movement so that as the crossing player lifts their foot, that's when you start to get out of the blind side and you make your movement to just get in front of the defender. But you can see at this moment, as the crossing player has lifted his foot, just about to strike the ball, defender is firmly fixated on the crosser. Hojlund's still in the blind spot there, defender's got no idea where he is, which is exactly what you want to see from an attacker's point of view. And roll on the image again, you can see now you've got Hojlund just at the last moment as the ball is travelling, which is crucial because the defender has absolutely zero time to react. There's the ball there. The ball is on its way towards Hojlund, and as the ball's travelling, just as it's about to get to Hojlund, because it's travelling pretty fast, that's the exact moment where he gets in front of the defender, and the defender has no idea where he's come from, no idea how he's appeared there. But he times his movement perfectly to get in front of the defender. And what we'll see in the last image, or 2 images, you can see he gets on the end of the ball and diverts it into the back of the net. As we can see in the last image, everyone's celebrating, happy days. And you can see there, from that first image where it didn't look like that favourable of a situation, Hojlund's movement there, in terms of staying in the blind side of the defender and cutting out just at the last minute, is absolutely spot on, and that is why he's a real threat and a real danger on crosses. Now, there's some weaknesses to his game that mean that he's not as effective as he hopefully will be in 2 or 3 years, but that particular aspect there is going to be vital for United, because we don't really have anybody with that core skill set at the moment, and that should clear up an extra 5, 10, 15 goals a season maybe in all comps. 5, I would hope more than 5 in the Premier League, but it should be a lot of extra goals from that movement, getting on the end of things and making defenders work. So that's one of the reasons I'm really excited for Hojlund. Now, we've got another example of it here, just so I can prove that that wasn't a fluke. So in this position, this is at club level, so it's not just at international level, he happens to pull out this sort of movement. Again, you've got the crosser here, you've got Rasmus Hojlund here. You can see, once again, he's in the defender's blind spot. So again, if you're a striker, you want to get better at your movement in the box, this is what you need to be doing. Wait in the blind spot of the defender. The defender's watching the ball. He can't see both Hojlund and the ball at the same time. So Hojlund's well positioned there because he's in the blind spot. Second one, at this moment you can see Hojlund's again trying to do the same thing. He's seeing that the crossing player is just about to lift his foot, and so as a result he's trying to come out of the defender's blind spot at exactly the last second so that there's no time to react, and he appears there just as the ball is played. So that's the idea. Same thing again, timing your movement brilliantly, but instead of crossing it, the guy takes an extra touch. And what I like here is what Hojlund does to readjust. So he's not just a one-trick pony in terms of that first move, and if that doesn't work, he's switched off. This is brilliant here. So the guy takes the extra touch, decides to take on the defender. Not quite sure why, but fair enough. You've got another run going on there. You can see the defender still fixated on the ball, but he can probably see Hojlund in his peripheral vision there. But you can see from Hojlund's body position, standing there like this, that he's ready and he's actually leaning backwards. And the reason for that will become apparent in the next image there. He's trying to slow himself down and stop himself to actually move backwards, back into the defender's blind spot and find that space between the two defenders. So the first idea and his first option is always come out in front of the defender at the right moment. But if that doesn't work, he'll readjust, always finding himself a good position, as he does here, between the defenders. And as the cross is played, I think that's the ball there. Well, I think. I don't know what else it would be. It's a bright yellow circle, sphere, dot thing travelling towards him, and he does get on the end of it. Unfortunately, his heading's not the best, but he gets on the end of the chance. And that sort of box movement, genuinely, it's Cavani-esque, it's Ronaldo-esque, and that is why I'm really excited for what Hojlund can bring in terms of goals, because it's genuine presence in the box. And Erling Haaland in particular, I don't want to compare the two because there's a lot of differences between them, and Hojlund is much younger in comparison, much more raw, but there's similar traits in terms of the presence that they'll have in the box, their ability to cause defenders absolute headaches because they do the technical basics right in terms of their movement. Wait in the blind spot, time your movement just as the crossing player lifts their foot to play the cross, and then come out of the last second, out of the defender's shadow, nip in front and divert the ball goal bound. So that's Hojlund's strength, and his biggest asset by a long, long way is that box movement that he shows there. In terms of Hojlund's weaknesses and things that he's still got to work on, I think in certain situations he's not as precise. I'd say his passing is a lot better than Cavani. So if you play the ball into Hojlund, as we saw from the layoff, he's much more precise with his passing than Edinson Cavani is. But I would say in terms of link-up, if he's got 3 or 4 players in close proximity, he's not quite in the sort of Jadon Sancho, Donny van de Beek wavelength where they'll be playing 1-2s, quick combinations for days. Not that that's a bad thing, but just don't expect that side of the game from him. And I would also say, with his finishing, when he is in front of goal, at the moment, he's not quite always able to put the ball right in the bottom corners every time. It's often at a good height for goalkeepers. And sometimes he can miss the target. In terms of the types of finishes that he prefers, he does like the one from, if I can change the field, to, there we go, the attacking, whatever half that ends up being. He likes one where he sort of comes through here and he feeds it into the bottom corner. Quite good at that, and he quite likes from this side, he'll go across goal quite a bit. He's all right at those, but sometimes he can be a little bit inconsistent, and surprisingly for somebody of his physical stature, his aerial game is not the best. He's still got a lot of work to do on that, but I think with someone so young and so raw, that is definitely something he can improve upon and be a fantastic asset for United. But the great news is, even for now, with a lot to work on in his game in terms of his aerial game, sometimes using his body a little bit better in the duels, and getting a little bit more precise with his link-up game, even with all those things to work on, Hojlund can instantly offer quite a big impact to Manchester United from his physical capabilities, but also his fantastic movement in the box that will not only get him goals individually, but because he's constantly threatening in and around the 6-yard box, that will suck defenders in and create space on the edge of the box for other players arriving late. Bruno Fernandes, Christian Eriksen, Diogo Dalot if he continues to play inverted, and even the wingers as well, Rashford and Antony, could potentially benefit from Hojlund's attraction of defenders towards his space. So, hope you've enjoyed this player profile. Let us know what you think about Hojlund's incoming signing and his ability to make an impact down below, and we'll see you again very soon on United View.